Hi, my name is Thais Gibson, and I'm the creator of the Personal Development School. This is your daily breakthrough video. And in this video, I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the main themes of what triggers the dismissive avoidant attachment style in their relationship with an AP. And I really want to help to shed a little bit more light and insight into it so that if you are an anxious preoccupied watching this video, you also are not sitting there thinking, oh, I'm not good enough, or something's wrong with me, or I'm failing at relationships, or I'm not likable, instead you can understand what's going on from an attachment trauma perspective and understand that it's not about your character or you not being enough in some way, but instead about the different programming we have and how different individuals and their programming can really cause friction with other individuals and their programming based on the way we learn to adapt to trauma in our childhood. What often happens is dismissive avoidants, when they start dating an anxious preoccupied, APs tend to represent a couple things that really drive attraction. Attraction is largely driven by a couple main features. One is trait variety. So when people express our repressed traits, and I always say this, I've said this on this channel before, but if we look historically into the past, trait variety actually helped people to evolve and survive. So if somebody was really smart and somebody was really strong and they paired up together, they had a greater chance at surviving than if they were on their own. And so we have this biological wiring for trait variety to some degree. So it obviously drives attraction. So that's one major feature. And you see that in APDA dynamics, right? You see anxious preoccupied individuals, they tend to be people focused. They tend to be, very charismatic, charming, outgoing. These are a lot of the adaptations they make in childhood because they're so relationship focused. They learn to hone in on those skills in their life because that supports their needs that they value and prioritize subconsciously. Dismissive avoidants tend to be more logical, practical, rooted, grounded, self-sufficient, independent, autonomous, because that was their set of adaptations that really allowed them to feel a sense of relief from the different trauma they went through attachment-wise in their life, right? They minimized their need for attachment to others, and that brought them a sense of relief. And so then building their personality around that minimized attachment need sort of helps develop some of those features I just mentioned from a trait perspective, that independence, autonomy, et cetera. So they tend to express these opposing traits, and the DA tends to really value and feel really drawn to and often infatuated with the charisma, the supportiveness, the selflessness, the kindness, the presence, all these things of the AP or that the AP expresses. Then there's also another major factor that drives attraction, and it is when somebody meets our unmet needs. And you can see how this could happen with these different attachment styles. And the DA is very drawn to the AP meeting their need to feel cared for, to feel seen, to feel valued, to feel prioritized, to feel like a lot of these things that instead they didn't feel in childhood because they often dealt with a lot of neglect. And so there's this ultimate drawing that comes in there and takes place. However, one of the other things that really drives attraction, that's actually a little bit almost in some ways and in some situations can even almost oppose the first two, is we're really programmed at a deep level to value our subconscious comfort zone. So we want things to be the same, or you see how we all have this natural resistance to change, even those of us that are big novelty, exploration, discovery seekers. When change isn't something we choose, we tend to resist it. And it's because our subconscious mind wants that domain of familiarity because it associates it with safety and survival. So there's this other part where when we can be drawn to these things, sometimes across time, those very same things can actually make us need to push away or protect ourselves. And you see this happen a lot in the anxious avoidant trap. You see this a lot with dismissive avoidance in partnership with anxious preoccupied people. So what you'll see as a general rule is they'll be drawn into the AP, but then too much of being seen, too much presence, too much care, too much demand for time and attention actually end up being things that challenge the DA's mechanisms of coping, their independence, their autonomy, their need for freedom, and their need to sort of, do their own thing and spend time alone. And so the way this programming is, right, it's not about somebody being good enough, not good enough. It's literally about programming and what we're trying to do in our lives from a programming perspective. What you'll see is these things that originally draw the DA in can eventually cause the DA to back away. And some of these things actually play out in a set of things I'm going to go through in detail. But if as I'm going through these things, you find yourself really wanting to do the work on like mending a relationship with a DA family member, friend, loved one, partner, ex, anything like that, as long as you see that, hey, these things are fair for you, or it's fair for you to give it a shot, you're not violating your own boundaries in the process, you can check out the Anxious, Preoccupied, and Dismissive Avoidant Relationship course that goes through exactly everything you need to do to make amends to challenges that may come up in this relationship. Or even if you're like dating somebody early on and you just want to deal with these things proactively instead of reactively once they happen, this course will be your guide for this. And you can check it out for free for 7 days using the link below. And it's literally going to enter you into PDS. You could actually access using that link to all of our courses. And if you type in your dashboard, Dismissive, Avoidant, Anxious, Preoccupied, you'll see those relationship courses come out. And it is like a very in-depth, intensive roadmap for exactly how to communicate, exactly what needs, what pain points you're going to see come up in this relationship, and how to move through all of these different things in a lot of detail and with action steps and strategies and slides, and everything's out there for you. So anyways, so as we go through this, some of the original things that draw in are like feeling supported, cared for, acknowledged. But over time, the intensity or the need for the amount of time that anxious preoccupieds have for the dismissive avoidant and want in order to like facilitate the growth of that relationship can quickly turn into the dismissive avoidant feeling afraid of losing their identity, afraid of being pressured, trapped. And then when there's this communication that takes place where the APs try to communicate, like my needs aren't being met, or I feel hurt or rejected, DAs take criticism really painfully. They usually make it mean something's wrong with me, like I'm defective at my core, which is actually a wound that they develop out of neglect in childhood. And so over time, they can end up feeling this fear of like being smothered, these things that they were originally drawn to. And everybody's seen this in some form in a relationship where it's like the infatuation cycle turns into the resentment cycle. And it's because these features of what drives attraction can often oppose each other: subconscious comfort zone versus trait variety, and somebody meeting your unmet needs. So over time, this feeling smothered can take place. And this loss of independence is so triggering and scary for the DA, because that development of their independence is what led them to feel safe in their world when they were feeling neglected in other forms. And it was actually quite painful. And so they often don't have this like ability to see that, hey, relationships are supposed to be interdependent, meaning we like consider each other's needs and go back and forth and negotiate about them. And when an AP communicates needs, DAs are often thinking like, well, that's yours to fix, that's yours to meet. And it's actually like an unhealthy expectation in that relationship, because it's each person's as an individual to meet, but also something to be resolved within the relationship at the same time through communication and negotiation. Sometimes as well, DAs in this relationship, they start getting triggered because they feel like, oh, I'm not capable. As much as I'm so infatuated with you or so interested in you, I'm not capable of giving you what you need. And they will sort of be like, okay, I'm not capable of like being able to show up for you in the way that you're needing. And I'm not capable of doing relationships. And again, that's not true either, but it's often the meaning the DA gives to something, right? It's like they don't have good modeling for relationships growing up around emotional needs, especially. And so the doing of that, the unfolding of all of that can feel really confusing for dismissive avoidance. And when they feel like their distancing strategies don't work, they often feel like their boundaries are violated. They feel like they're unseen, unheard, misunderstood. And they feel as well like, oh, I can't do enough to please this person. And so all of these things can be what ultimately causes all this triggering for the dismissive avoidant. And again, it's not a result of somebody not doing enough in the relationship. It's a result of people's different pain points and programming coming up and creating these challenges in this relationship that really need to be unpacked, to be resolved, to be communicated about. If both parties really discuss what their boundaries are in relationships for time, and then both parties also communicate and discuss like what they need for a sense of certainty in the relationship, how we can validate each other, how we can acknowledge each other's differences, take them into consideration, come up with healthy plans and strategies to make decisions that work for both of us. And I've seen this through like literally working with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of couples. You can see all of these different dynamics unfold in a much healthier form long term. And nobody has to be left feeling rejected or unwanted or anything of that sense. So anyways, I hope this makes sense just to understand like these triggers and why these triggers happen all the way with its roots back to our early conditioning in childhood. And if you want to do a deeper dive, check out that course. It will help so much to like understand, unpack, but then much more so than I can ever in this video, give you the exact steps and tools and strategies for moving through these challenges. So I hope this makes sense. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for being here. And let me know if you have questions in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video. Oh, and please subscribe to this channel if you got value from this video as well. Thank you.